Alright, so here's the steps that you're going to follow to set up your first show. If you haven't set up any shows before, or you're going to set up one from scratch, what you're going to do is make sure that you're in the right organization here. If you have access to multiple organizations, you can set your date range, and this is going to display anything that you have in there in those dates. I do have some shows set up here previously, but just ignore that for now because I'm going to use those here in a minute as a shortcut. What you're going to do to set up your first show, click the blue plus sign, select from the new empty show. You're going to name your show, so just whatever your normal show name is. If this is going to be for a limited aged event on the same day, go ahead and add in LAE at the end of it or something different just to distinguish it from the weekend show. Since we need to send show applications in for separately for weekend shows and aged events, if they're going to be on the same day, on live scoring you're going to see two icons there. So this helps differentiate, and also on your menu it'll help you differentiate which one's which. So you can set that up that way. And then from here we're going to go ahead and add in the date that we're going to set the show up for, and then select the judge. We're going to use Neil Roger here. And then select him from the drop down, and once you've filled all those in, go ahead and create. And what that's going to do is going to pull up this show application form that you can fill out. One thing to remember, whether you're setting up a weekend show or an aged event, that's where you would select these right here. It's going to change some of the settings on your screen. So if you're not seeing the right settings, make sure that you've got it set to whatever show you're trying to set up. Let's go take a look at a pre-filled out one now, and you can see how everything is filled out on there. Okay, so here we have the weekend show application. It's been filled out. You can put in your website, arena information, address, things like that, directions to the arena. You're going to need to select who's producing the show or who's in charge of producing the show. That will be selected from an NCHA database, approved show producers, as well as the secretaries. So make sure that you select from those. You can add in some contact information, also your videographer. That's got to be an approved NCHA videographer. You can select that. Once you start typing in the name, you'll see some options there from the database. Then any additional information that you want to list, you can put that in here. Be sure and select that classes will be one go around. Select that there. And then if no, you can explain. Also, you can add in some other times there, when horses need to be on the grounds, show start time, open riders permitted, that sort of thing, whether this is part of other affiliates. And then you can make sure and select, if you're having an aged event, when is that aged event going to be? Before, after, during the weekend show? So make sure you select that. And then health papers, Coggins required. The youth, so here's an important section here. You can select whether you want it to be separate classes or combined classes. If you don't know, you can select either one, and you can override that when you go to set up the class. Or you can come back here and edit that. Also, whether you want stallions permitted in the youth class, premium money, and then be sure to check these two options if you are offering the novice youth or the senior world tour, because that does add some selections for you when you go to set up your classes. So be sure, and if you don't see what you're looking for when you go to set up your class, make sure that you've got these checked if that's what you're trying to set up in the classes section. And then for the LAE show app, it's basically the same. You're just going to make sure that you select, that it is an aged event here when you're setting that up. You can select the different options. These are just some default options that go with the NCHA LAE classes. So you can select the one that applies to you. If you have a different judge or need to add judges, you can do that here. And then over here, pre-fill out, same information. And then here you're going to select the weekend held in conjunction with the show. The weekend show is going to be held after, so there again you can change that out if you need to. Health papers and that sort of thing. One more important note to mention here is the default settings. Remember, we included that NCHA championship fee. Obviously that doesn't apply for the aged events, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and trash that there, and that way it doesn't appear. And if you need to add any charges here or change anything out, you can do that here. Also, if you want to change out how many cows per entry, you can do that there as well. And that's just some shortcuts for when you go to set up your classes. Those are not set in stone, so they can be changed anytime on a per class basis. So here's the really cool part. Once you've set up your first show and set up your classes for it as well, you can actually go in and copy that forward for other shows, other dates, without having to redo all that. So I'm going to show you here how to do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to be in the shows section. You're going to go ahead and click the plus sign. And now instead of creating a new empty show, I'm going to create a new show. And it's going to show up any shows that I've created previously here. Right now I've just got 2 in here. So I'm going to go ahead and create the Weekend Show, name it the same. And then what we're going to do is for a date, we're just going to select a future date. So I'm just going to select whatever, 17th. You don't have to put a judge in, by the way, in this section, but you know, if you do, you can, so that's up to you. And then if I hit create now, it's going to go ahead and create that show and go straight to the show app, so I can print that or make any changes here to print that and send that off. If I go to classes now and then select that show, so that's here, it's already pulled in all those classes in there with all the information, all the entry fees and everything else. So that's the beauty of this, is you don't have to set up all the classes every time. You can even go back, if you have 1 show a year, you can just go back and pull in all last year's settings, make any small changes that you need to make, but all the general stuff will already be there, so you don't have to keep re-entering that. So the first show is always the hardest, setting up the most information, and after that it's just a matter of copying and pasting and making a few adjustments. Once you've got it all filled out, you can go down here, click on the NCHA app, and that's going to bring up a PDF that can be downloaded, emailed, printed, however you want to send it into NCHA for approval. And that's basically very similar to what you've already probably done before. Some of the other buttons down here, the Excel results, cancel show, you know, if you need to cancel a show, you can click that. Update judges, you can do that anytime. So once you've got your show set up, you can always go back in and update your judge, or even during the show, if you need to update it, you can do that there as well. Once your show is approved, you can go ahead and enter in your show ID numbers over here at the top, and then that will automatically transpond them over into your results. And that way you've got your show IDs tied with your show setup and your results. One thing to remember, if you do create a show without assigning a judge to the show, it's still going to create the show and everything's going to look normal, except over here you're going to see now that there's no judge assigned to this, and then down the bottom there'll be no judge as well. So we click on it. So here's how you can fix that. Simply go back to your show, double click on the show that you set up without a judge, go ahead and enter your judge, select him from the drop down. Now what you're going to do is you're going to update the judges tab down here at the bottom, and what that's going to do is that's going to update all active classes to match the current show judges. Active or scores official classes will not be updated. This cannot be undone. So what this is going to do is it's going to update the judge for all those classes. So if you do this, let's say the 3rd or 4th class of the day, it's actually going to delete the other judge. So this is not the way to add a judge or replace a judge, but this is how to add a judge to all your classes for that day for that show. So we're going to click OK. Now we're going to go back to, it says it's updated for all 12 classes. So now when we go to check the classes, we'll click on the classes, and you can see down the bottom here, Jason Taylor has been assigned to it. We can click on the different classes and we're going to see Jason Taylor is in here, and also for the other classes he's there as well. And then also on your home screen for the shows now, you're going to see Jason Taylor in there. So that's how to add a judge. If you were just going to replace a judge for certain classes, say your judge got food poisoning halfway through the day, you would just go into that class and change out the judge there and do it that way. And that'll save, you know, the previous classes and keep the judge the same for that one. Now another thing to note here, if you're kind of in and out of setting up shows or different times, or you're not seeing some shows, one thing to check is the date range over here. So right now you can see, hey, I'm not seeing any shows, but I know I've had some. Be sure to set your dates back to before when you had the shows, and then those will pop up. It's also a handy tool that if you don't want to see all the shows that you've run here over the last, 3, 4, 5 weeks, months, whatever, you can set these dates to only show the exact show that you want to see, or days, consecutive days, that sort of thing. So it just it helps you kind of clean up your main screen here and create a little less clutter for you. If you have any questions on anything here, feel free to give us a call or email us, and we'll be happy to help you out.